And look at that. Back from the long break there. Apologies for the long pause, but we were watching Macross the movie over in SciTube, and we're back. Of course, I'd planned to watch to grab some food while I was watching the Macross movie, but what happened instead? I watched the Macross movie because that's what you do when the Macross movie is on. You can't really get distracted by other things. You have to watch that. It just pulls you in, for me at least. That is my experience. I just gotta say, Macross is definitely one of those things that you know it is memorable. It is definitely that. Okay. On setting, just prepping things a little bit for the next segment, and then we will go there. But I don't feel particularly hungry, I'll be honest. I might grab some snacks here in a little bit. But we will go ahead and just start getting things back into normality, whatever normality is in this weird time. It is really nice to have OnCon going, I gotta say, because I feel like, man, we can have a more we can do stuff together, enjoy experiences that we wouldn't otherwise, and that is always fun. I guess maybe not always fun, but it's usually worth a try. So next up on the schedule will be some world building. That is the plan. So once we get a few more folks back in the chat room, we will start that over on the SciTube. We're going to be starting Combat Mecha Zabangul, Yoshiki Tomino series from the early 80s. But I'm going to be right here doing some world building with y'all. So that should be, hopefully that will be enjoyable. We'll find out. I just got to do a quick change here. Wink. There we go. Fix a few things. And then we'll be ready to play around with some stuff. But yeah, folks are, I think, still getting off the Macross movie. So finishing that up, which is totally fine. So FYI, if you're interested, we're going to do a little rave party later on tonight. Drop your favorite AMVs that are on YouTube over in the OnCon Rave channel on Discord. And tonight we'll play a whole bunch of them. I'll see if I can find a few and drop those in there. Should be fun. Yep, trickling back in. You know, trying to get off that Macross Do You Remember Love high. That emotional emotions of that movie. That movie just pulls at you. It was interesting actually watching it and realizing how how much it is kind of this sort of light, relatively light war story, as much as a war story can be light. But it is a sort of relational thing, and they go bouncing back and forth, and then a certain thing happens, and it suddenly gets serious, and it stays pretty serious. Like there's a mic drop about a third of the way through that movie, and you're like, dang, what's going on here? Just the emotional roller coaster that you go on in that movie is pretty masterfully done. And oh my gosh, that animation! Oh. Glad to hear it, Lord Admira. Yeah, boy. Feels a lot. I mean, maybe next one we'll do Gunbuster. You want to bawl your eyes out. Gosh. Although that's a bit more of a commitment. But who knows. So that'll be the plan for tonight. We'll do a little AMV rave. And then tomorrow, you got more Saturday morning cartoons, some more panels, charity auction, closing ceremonies, which I still don't know quite what it's going to be. Still got to figure that out. Like I said, maybe we'll do some cookie baking or something like that. We'll see. Cool. Yeah, there is some beer in there. So, funny story. I was at a panel at Otakon, I guess last year, where Shoji Kawamori was there, and he shared a story. Shoji Kawamori, the mecha designer behind Macross, and he said, "So here's the backstory behind Macross. I got really excited about this design I had for the Valkyrie, and I really wanted to do an anime involving the Valkyrie, and it would be this. As I recall, it was going to be this like really grounded, serious military show, and obviously, the Valkyrie is a slightly fantastical design, but it was going to be this very a more military focused show, and no one would go for it. No one wanted to make that show, and so he and the other folks working with him decided, well, okay, we know what we're going to do. Here's the trick. You pitch two shows, and you pitch one show that you don't actually want to do, and then you pitch the show that you actually want to do, and the one that you don't want to do, you make as ridiculous as possible. You make it just really, really silly and goofy. And then when you pitch the show you actually want to do, even if they wouldn't have liked it normally, it looks so much better by comparison that they pick the one you actually want to do. So they're going to be really clever. So what's the stupidest idea we can think of for a mecha? What is the most ridiculous thing? And so Kawamori said, here's, I got it. A giant mecha transformable aircraft carrier. Absolutely massive, even bigger than a regular aircraft carrier. It's the size of a city. In fact, we'll put a city inside of it, and it also transforms into a giant robot. That is the craziest, most dumb idea I can think of for an anime series and for a mecha. So he sketched this out, and they came up with this idea of okay, aliens invade, and they're trying to get this thing, and they built all this other stuff around it. And then they kept working on this idea for this ridiculous anime series, and the more they worked on it, the more they liked it, and they got more and more invested in the bad idea, and kept plussing it and adding to it, and eventually they came up with Macross, and Macross is what grew out of that original concept, and you get that. And then he ended up just putting the Valkyrie in Macross, just dropping it in. Yep, there we go. It's so crazy, it's brilliant. Very, very ridiculous. So he's like, this is really, really dumb idea. So yeah, and that's... you're absolutely right, Lord Admiral. It was usually going to be an aircraft carrier, and then it got bigger and bigger and bigger. So we'll just have a giant city with two aircraft carriers stuck onto it. It just grew and grew. That whole evolution. So yeah, things come from strange places. All right, it is 7 p.m. So let me see if I can transition this over here. I can do that. And then, do I have the thing? But that's not right at all. Okay, I can do that. And then shift that over to there and move that a little bit. That works pretty well. But I think I need to shrink this a little bit more. That's just fine. Okay. So, here's the idea. Let me just transition this real quick. That looks pretty good. All right. So here's the deal. It's OnCon, we're running our convention, but it's time to do some world building. I decided I'd spend some time, now that we have a bunch of folks in the chat room, I thought it'd be fun to create a setting that would be an interesting place to tell stories. The kind of setting you'd find in a light novel or an anime or a manga or maybe a video game. I thought it'd be fun to just sort of crowdsource and throw together a world. And to do that, I'd like to follow, broadly speaking, a few principles I have for world building. Let me zoom this in a little bit. Oops, it's a little unhappy. There we go. So here are some of my views on world building. And one of the most important things, one of the first things is the question of the purpose of your setting. Why are you building your setting? Because I think, actually, Macross panel is a good idea. So when you're building a setting, I think it's important to not create a generic setting. And I'd love to create a setting that we could all tell stories in. Maybe we create something that is evocative enough that you all end up writing little stories or do art within this setting, that kind of stuff. It could be sort of a shared world that we all play around in. And so I think defining that when you start off is really important. I think that's really helpful to define. So if we're gonna have a purpose to this, shared world, and we define this because this is going to impact a lot of the decisions we make, right? We don't want to make a setting that is so bizarre or out there or strangely structured that other people can't understand it, right? So we're all this should be comprehensible to a fair number of people. That doesn't mean generic, right? It can be very distinctive, but it needs to be easy to grasp by people. So that's where we're going to start. All right, so we're going to go over here, and yeah, I mean, ancient Rome's covers a large amount of history. When we think ancient Rome, we think more Bronze Age, but we get the idea. So the next question is, what is the general tech level of the world? This is a term borrowed from a role-playing game called GURPS, but it's to sort of establish, how advanced is society, if you will, in terms of technology, right? What kind of technology is available to the general people? And I think this is a reasonable sort of scale to bounce to start with. We can get more specific, but the more specific you get, the harder it is to create a useful list. So what are y'all thinking in terms of a tech level for a world you like to play around with? And I've done stuff in a variety of different eras, a variety of different tech levels. You can certainly have fun no matter where you are on this spectrum. So I'm wondering what folks are interested in terms of this. We could go all the way up to spacefaring. We just watched Macross, obviously. So vote for Iron Steel, medieval level. Mechanical settings. Of course, we can combine those two. We could have sort of steampunkish medieval. Kind of like sort of clockwork, that kind of thing. So those are certainly possibilities. That'd be kind of fun. Transition from bronze to iron. Early industrial is underused, but with magic. So early industrial with magic, so kind of steampunk with magic. Kind of steampunk medieval, early industrial. Transition from bronze to iron. Yeah. That's a fun time as folks are moving into more stable society in that way. Okay, I think we're getting a fair number of votes for steampunk medieval. So let's kind of start there, and we can rearrange things a little bit. So let's say tech level. Mechanical medieval. So clockwork, machinery, etc. And let's see here. Let's say magic exists, but we'll define exactly what. Like, do we want low magic, high magic, that kind of thing? For clockpunk over steampunk, I hear that. Yep. I kind of like the idea that that the clockwork is actually mechanical, right? It is functional, and it's not like magically infused gears. That might exist, but the basic clockworks are really useful, are effective in that. Okay, so we're starting there. That's cool. So, next question. What kind of food source, or what is the basic method of eating in this world? This may sound a little weird, but I think it's important to say, is this a society that is all vegetarian, where there's tons of farms everywhere? Is this a society where everyone eats meats, so there's a lot of ranching and that kind of a thing? Is everyone using weird, magically created food? Does everyone live on tiny little hunks of land that are hovering in the air, and so they eat magic mushrooms that sit on the bottom of that kind of thing? Maybe not steampunk medieval, but more like clockwork medieval. So medieval, but with clockwork mechanisms, with the ability to automate certain things with machinery. Well, that's kind of the point, is that food kind of defines civilization level, right? Sources, the source of your food is determines how, what your civilization is in a lot of ways. So an example of this is the high mountains in China, where there's not a lot of you can't farm. You basically have to eat meat. You can do some things like mushrooms and fungi and such, but you're not going to have giant fields of wheat. But you can import it. So you have a very specific kind of culture that's centered around herding animals, compared to the big rice plains of China, where it's a much more agrarian society. Nomadic, due to large intense weather. That's cool. Cities on wheels. If they have real cities, it seems they need farms, potentially. Medieval goes along with agrarian. I'm never by it, not necessarily. You can have a medieval society where it's just structured medievally, but everyone's herding. Okay, so there's folks who like farming. All right, so we'll say food, farming. So large amounts of farming, agrarian society, and obviously that doesn't have to be just plain corn and wheat and such. It can be somewhat fantastical as well. Yeah, incongruity is fine. Nothing wrong with incongruity. You want to balance it, right? You want to have enough incongruity to make some interesting things, but not so much that it just feels random. All right, so magic. First question is, how magic is magic? And I ask that because some people try to treat magic as science, that it is a definable, repeatable process, and others prefer magic that is not repeatable, right? Where it can mess up, it can go weird, it can fall all over the place. Islands in an ocean, people like that. Islands of different farm plantations, floating islands, interesting. Okay, well, floating islands. Farming becomes kind of difficult on floating islands because you don't have a lot of land. So you could have, the islands have to be really, really big, obviously. So if you had islands, kind of in the sense of traditional, so you can do a couple of different things. So islands in our world have a lot of flora and fauna on them that are harvested, and so there's less farming and there's more harvesting. Or we can have islands that are very farmed. Ooh, so we can do this. Tell you what. Let's see here. So we have aeroponics. All right, so here's the idea. Uh, Heavily farmed over the centuries because of humans living there for so long. So maybe these started as like very verdant islands. People were just harvesting stuff off the islands, but as people lived there longer and longer, they had to convert sort of everything to farms to pull as much food out of that as possible. The planet is all sea with no real continents. Interesting. So when we say floating islands, do we mean like floating in the sky or floating in the water? That's an interesting question. Floating islands would definitely be interesting. Skies floating in the water would be interesting because then you're drifting with the currents, which could be relatively repeatable. So you know how things are going. Sky. All right. So we definitely mean floating islands. Good. So we're all in agreement on that one. Floating islands in the sky, heavily farmed in the center. Okay. Cool. Maybe magical extensions of sea islands. Okay. So here's an idea. Ocean below with some islands. With floating islands magically tied to various islands in the ocean. So maybe it's like some kind of magical tethering, where not necessarily every, but a lot of the floating islands in the sky has some kind of magical, connection down to a landmass in the ocean that's floating around, right? And then maybe the islands in the water are kind of dragging those. Ooh, so that would also be interesting. What if the islands that are floating drag around the island in the sky, and can be good or bad. And so the islands in the sky could kind of connect or disconnect, and that could be kind of a social thing where an island in the sky could say, we're traveling with you, but we don't like where your island is going. Maybe you're dangerous or whatever, so we're going to unplug, disconnect from your island and float around, maybe find another island to connect to. And so there's this kind of social dimension to it, where the different different islands have this contract, if you will. That's kind of interesting. And running out of normal land, so expand upward via magic. Interesting. So the floating islands were built by the water islanders to house more people. And so they're kind of colonists. So it's kind of like Gundam, where the floating islands are all colonies of the sea islands, but they've developed their own, society. Their societies evolved over time, and some of them are floating around. I think land is the scarcity in this world. Land is scarce. So hold on. Islands in the ocean, which built the sky islands because they needed more land. This also implies that and this gets back to our agrarian stuff, that the islands in the sky are the farms, right? They're the primary food source for the islands down below. and sky fishing, exactly that kind of stuff. While down on near the ocean, maybe they've depleted their resources, maybe they've converted their land for something else. So here are some options. Are the islands in the ocean heavily clockworked? So most of the clockwork is being developed and built down there, and they need a lot of land to construct these things. They need a lot of trees, obviously, for that. That would make sense. So the islands down on the ocean have to have all these huge forests for the trees to build all the clockwork, to have the wood for the clockwork, which means they can't farm. They can't effectively have farms down there. And as that one, as that has expanded, they've had to, create more of this land up in the sky, and then that's created this, again, political system. And I think, Johnny, the whole poverty thing might very well be a thing, again, kind of like Gundam, where the folks in the sky have been, sent to the off-world colonies to harvest and do this thing for us, but they have not been treated well. They're not getting paid very well for what's going on, and they're revolting as a result of that. Or at least there's tension around that because they're not having a lot of they're not having the rights that they need, so they might disconnect. We can have a combination of iron, wood, clockwork. The downside of having the clockwork be metal is islands don't have metal. You very quickly, if land is a scarce resource, if land is a scarce resource, it's going to be really hard for them to have significant amounts of metal. So that might be a realism problem. Unless the islands are really big, obviously. We could have that happen. So maybe some middle ground there. Maybe metal clockwork is unquestionably better, but it's extremely expensive. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Wood clockwork is relatively common and inexpensive. Newer clockwork is made of metal, but extremely expensive. The ocean islands produce wood clockwork, which is relatively common and expensive. They also make newer clockwork of metal, but it's extremely expensive. Cool. I like that. You have iron trees too, yeah. Indeed, let's say a recent cultivar of wood is an ironwood that competes with metal. So there's a faction that says, no, metal is unsustainable. So we've created this type of wood that's extremely, extremely strong. Maybe they found it somewhere and they're breeding it, whatever. And and that creates this tension where, well, do you want to go in that direction? Do you want to go with the metal, right, and bounce around? Mermaids mining under the water. Ooh, yeah. Merfolk also mine underwater. Mermaids the elite. Are mermaids the elite? Possibly. They certainly have plenty of territory. Although the ocean could also be very dangerous. The merfolk run a metal cartel. That's awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah, they have this absolute control because the islands can't they just don't have enough resources for that. But all the metal is underground. That's fantastic. Yeah. All right. Cool. So, we know that much. So let's get back to the question of magic. Do we want... Yeah, what does magic do in this world? Does it replace power sources? Is magic repeatable? Is it a form of science? Is it essentially a way of like powering things, or a weapon or whatever, or is it more like medieval alchemy, where it's something that can do extraordinary things but isn't really very repeatable? Something being explored, something that could be useful. Um, or do we want magic at all? Like we don't need magic necessarily. Or it could be something that it exists but it's weird. Cloistered magic users. I saw that before. That's an interesting idea. So magic exists but it's very contained. That's nice. Not something you see all that often in in fantasy. Could be early development. That's true. Magic spot somewhere. Ooh, so like ley lines. That idea where you have some spots where magic works and others where it doesn't, or it's very weak, very strong in other places. And that could also be interesting if the islands are being moved to different places with the currents, and different areas of the world are more or less magical. An island could move into a spot that has a stronger sort of magical current, and that could be some fun stuff. Magic sources of the sun and people hyper more exposed to it. That's certainly possible. The reason to build upwards is access to the magical currents. Ooh, so magical currents are upwards. Ooh, that's nice. Oh, and that allows, yeah, and that's what gives the Sky Islanders their power. They were this underclass, but they discovered that they have more magic up there, and that's what's giving them their upper hand in fights. Cool. Okay. Magic exists and is powered by accessing magical currents that are stronger the higher up you are in the atmosphere. So Sky Islanders have more powerful magic than Sea Islanders. However, magic is still relatively new and not well understood and practiced by relatively few. I like the idea that magic, people know that this thing exists and they're working for it, and they're working on it, but it's not, a magic academy in every city. It's these little cloistered communities working on it, kind of like monks doing all that. Interesting. Yeah, and jet streams. Yeah, think of it as jet streams. Magical. Actually, that covers it. That's really interesting. Okay, so I like that. So getting back to the question, what does magic do? Is this magic that? Because it can be fun to have a world where magic is very limited, and where it just does something like increase your speed or increase your whatever, or it's elemental magic, or it's you infuse weapons to make them stronger. The dragon flow, called the dragon flow. I love that. A set of magical currents called the dragon flow. That's cool. Yeah, it's a great name. Like, whether it's connected to dragons at all or not, that's completely irrelevant. People would call it the dragon flow. That's really cool. Magic makes things grow. I like that idea. That's interesting. So things are more verdant the higher up you are. Let's think. That has a lot of potential results. Otherwise, famine occurs. Maybe magic is how the ironwood thing got started. Okay, so let's say magic can be used, is primarily used to control, to manipulate the growth of living things. So by that I'm thinking, things grow faster, they grow stronger, they grow healthier, or you can do the opposite, right? You can sort of suck the life out of something with magic. It can also be unique, individual, and so because it is around sort of growth, you can do things like ironwood. And maybe if it is tied to growth, it could be individualistic. It could be something where, my version of magic allows me to cause you to grow, which means I make your heart, beat faster. Yeah, magic affecting things. Yeah, I kind of like that too. Um, I'm not against using magic to get ironwood. Ooh, okay. Here's a possibility. Magic could be distinct to the user, and it could also be how ironwood got started because some person went out there and used their magic to create ironwood, right? Um, and that was their gift, and some other people can have that ability, but it's not what everybody does all the time. Other people just can't do that, and that makes things interesting because you can have the magical talent, but not again not have a distinct defined result out of it. Yes, I have magic, but my magic allows me to enlarge fires, and control fire, which is cool, but it doesn't, I have no control over ironwood. But this person over here happened to be born with the ability to control ironwood, which makes them a much more valuable caster. Okay, let's go with that for now. Magic controls different things for different people. Cultivar of a recent magical cultivar of wood is an ironwood that competes with metal. Cool. Ironbenders. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very early FMA. So, prehistory of FMA's, world where they're still figuring out all this out, understand how things go. That's cool. And again, like you're saying, ambiguous. Somebody could just say, "Hey, I'm going to make this tree stronger," and something about it happens, that happens, and they don't necessarily know what that does. It could have pulled iron from the earth and sucked that into the tree, or it could be some magical effect, but they're not sure, right? And yeah. This makes different magic users more valuable. That said, there are relatively few magic users in the world. So just, noting that down. One thing I'm going to do now, so this is magic. Let's make this overall. Since we're starting to get a variety of things now, I don't want this to be one giant wad of text. All right. So I think we have a grasp of magic. What about the iron that everything has? Yeah, that's true. The source is above, though. If they're away from the flow, long have inverse effects. Oh, yeah. You can control different things to different people. More valuable. Though its strength is also affected by their proximity to the dragon flow. Oh, that's interesting. So, I'm not sure. Let's say either prolonged contact with or distance from the dragon flow has adverse effects on the user. Maybe both. Yeah, both. It should be both, right? If you're far away from it, you could feel kind of sickly and unused, or unused to that. But if you're like right there strongly in the flow, that could overwhelm you and feel just saturated in the power. That's really cool. Oh yeah, and that's a good point, Becca. If you're used to being far away from it, then suddenly you're up close, it feels much worse. Whereas if you're close and get away from it, that's cool. That's cool. The user, at least partly based on their normal proximity to the flow. That's awesome. Okay, yeah, kind of like a drug addiction. Imagine that. That could be our metaphor. So how powerful is magic? Right, so how big can magic be? It sounds like, since folks are still figuring it out, we probably don't have anyone that can blow up the world with magic. Let's see here. And obviously, the closer you are to the flow, the more powerful you are. So that'll that's a factor as well. But kind of what are our practical limitations? Yeah, I'm thinking, especially because where you are affects it, it will vary quite a bit. So one might say, pretty small scale, and also so individualized. So we'll say magic power is still relatively small scale. There are stories of magic users who have leveled whole buildings, right? So that's kind of the upper end. Maybe that's not possible yet. Maybe those are just stories, but maybe somebody's done something kind of at that scale, and so those stories have kind of spread out of control. We could have tainted magic, absolutely. Let me go back here and just double check. Any hard limitations on magic? I think a lot of the other stuff here is already fairly handled. So do we have any hard limitations on magic? Anything magic cannot do? Right? Can magic be blocked? Can magic be stopped? We've already used proximity to the flow as a limitation. That's certainly there. If there's a reverse flow, that could also be reverse magic, mind manipulation, no create from nothing, can't bring back the dead, all solid. Manipulate souls, yeah. Right, exactly, Becca. You could get right up close to that flow, just have it imbue you with power, but that could blow out your mind or whatever. Manipulate souls. Okay, so let's say magic cannot be used currently to bring back the dead, create from nothing, or manipulate minds. Manipulate minds or feelings. It sounds like basically magic cannot reverse physics, if you will, right? Like you can't do things that are completely impossible. This is more of an enhancement to things that are already there, right? You can affect the physical properties of objects. You could strengthen someone, heal someone, things along those lines. But it's a manipulation, not a get out of jail free card. Cool. I think that covers that fairly well. I like that idea. Magic does not reverse standard physical processes, it enhances them. Maybe that's not ideal because you can hurt people in that kind of right, but yeah, yeah. So a fairly rational magic, again, sort of a we'll say does not. I don't like that phrase. Magic cannot be used. Rational magic. Cool. All right. Early rational magic. Does it involve supernatural creatures? I think we're all agreed that there is a draconic aspect to it. Who knows how close that is, but I like that idea. We should come back to dragons at some point. In fact, I'm going to make a note. Dragons are a thing. Magic is rational. Cool. And again, we'll figure that out in a little bit. I also love that idea that there's a faction of merfolk that are trying to end that cartel thing. All right, so we have that. How about property? How is property handled in the society? And obviously, you'll have different views on this in different parts of society. But as a general rule, and at least for our base society, like where we would tell our story, is this a society that favors private property, communal property, no property? How does all that work? And again, you have very little land. Everyone's living close in with each other. So you got it very, things are tight, and that can go a couple of different ways. People could be very, mine, or it can be very communal. Depends. Ambiguous Cake suggests communal. I'm certainly not against that. Dragons could live in the currents, yeah. It could also be that dragons are like the only creatures that can fly in those currents, and they kind of suck up magical energy in doing so, which is why they're so powerful. Communalish outside of the elite. Oh, interesting. So the elite can afford private property, and they can afford the land and the space for private property. Interesting. Dragon bones, the foundation of flying islands. I'm going to note that down. I'm not sure if that's the only foundation, but I like that. Dragon bones are the foundations of flying islands. I just like the image of that, the concept of that. Small things personally owned, but they're very prized possessions. I would certainly like to figure out, how do islands fly? There should be some aspect to it there. Perhaps dragon bones are one of the ingredients. We'll see. Whoops. All right. Bones as metaphors, yeah. There's some small things that are personally owned, but they're very prized possessions, but mostly communal. But then like the elite have more personal possessions. I like that. That's very reasonable. We're gonna put that under overall. Most people have only a few possessions which are highly prized and very personal to them. Most everything else is communal. So I'm gonna believe thus that if you steal someone's personal possession, that's like, almost a capital offense. Like you could kill somebody for doing that. That's a really serious crime to steal someone's personal possessions. That's an interesting idea, Jay. Yeah, perhaps people who have more useful magic are allowed more personal possessions. Even though that does come and go, that might be a perk of being useful to society, for example. Um, hmm. So yeah, personal possessions are going to be pretty serious business. Folks are going to, take that really, really. They're going to be really offended if you decide to do that. If you decide to steal something from somebody else. But what about like communal property? Is communal property a big deal? Right? Are magic people hiding their magic, or is it open? Good question. It's clearly not entirely hidden if there are things like ironwood. Um, hmm. Little land possessions would be hyper valuable. Mostly hidden like what a person could do. Ah, that's an interesting point. Ambiguous cake. So I really like the idea that magic users are keep it very close to the chest what their capabilities are because A, they don't know themselves, and B, you want to get across the idea that you're super valuable and you can do all sorts of things, but you don't want to prove that, right? You want to say, oh yes, I can call down lightning from the skies. So you want to you want to be very cagey about your magic powers to begin with, so that people don't underestimate you, and so you're not pigeonholed on your powers. I like that. This suggests. So do we have like literally like cloistered magic communities where if you can do magic, you live in this little tight community of people, and you all kind of rely on each other, right? And you're really not entirely walled off from society, but you all are more aware of your powers and so forth. Maybe you're sharing there. Kind of that's your family, that's your world, as opposed to just being a person, essentially a contractor for other people. Where I have magic powers, I use my magic power for you. Um, and so people know there's magic. They know it's there. They know, these closer magic users can use magic, but they don't know the extent of it, and they are not, um, 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 they're kind of cagey about magic. I like that. Okay, so magic is rational. Um, Few magic users live in cloistered communities that are that work with outsiders but keep very much to themselves to protect their secrets and make themselves seem as valuable and powerful as possible. I'm imagining them almost like, um, contractors who work on, or like a gas station, if you will, or like a machinist shop. Machinist shop is a better example, where you go and you say, "Hey, I want this built. I want this made for me. You're specialists who do this." And it's a bunch of specialists all working together who can say, "Okay, we can do this, we can do that," but they're not individually out there saying, "Hey, I can do these 8 things." Instead, they're working together and kind of providing a unified front to the world, of these are all the things that we can do, and so you're not pigeonholing each individual person. Um, each community might have powerful magical relics. That's true. That's another question. Do you have magical relics? Right? Can physical objects contain magic in this world? Um, yeah. What's the ratio of magic users to no magic? We're saying they're pretty uncommon, practiced by relatively few. So it's certainly not going to be 1 in 3. Um, the other thing is this might be a fairly sparsely populated world. I'm not sure. Dragon relics, possible. That's not bad. Um, hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I like the social implication that magical relics allow you to cast magic even if you don't have magic powers, and so people are passing themselves off as magic users, but they're just using this, dragon stone that they found. But maybe that has its own downsides. Okay, that's cool enough to run with. Certain magic relics slash objects exist. Dragon based question mark, i.e., people say they're from dragons, but we'll define whether every relic has to be a dragon bone or whatever. Or you could infuse magic in objects. We can figure that out later. And can be used by non spellcasters. Some people pass themselves off as magic users, but really just use a relic. That's nice. But only metal objects can be infused with magic. Ooh. Huh. Only metal objects can be imbued with magic. Question mark. I like the idea, but I don't want to commit to it just yet. That's where the clockwork aspect comes in. I like that a lot. Yeah. No. Period. Yeah. That's interesting. And it creates this. It makes metal more valuable, but it also makes metal more useful, right? It's not just okay. We can do these clockwork things with it. We can actually enchant those clockwork items to do cool things with them. Yeah, that's how magic drives the metal clockwork. Cool. Okay. Nice. So woodwork. So wooden clockwork stuff isn't magical. I guess you could put a dragon relic in it, but metal clockwork or metal machinery can be inherently magical. That's interesting, and that gives a nice contrast too with the traditional idea of metal machines being soulless, in contrast with natural magic and the natural world. Whereas in this case, metal is actually magical, or can be magical. That's cool. And of course, metal would be controlled by the folks down on the ground. Okay, cool. That's awesome. All right. So I think we've handled that. Geography. We've already, again, I think we have a good idea of that. Let's ask this. How big is the average ocean island, and how big is the average sky island? Again, you'll have a big variety, but are we thinking that a standard ocean island is like, small deserted island, giant island? Are we talking, something that can, something that's miles across or hundreds of miles across? Right. What's our scale here for ocean islands and then also for sky islands? And of course, the sky islands are based off the ocean islands, so presumably the sky islands will be smaller. That makes sense. Hundreds of miles. May have to be. Yeah. Um, hmm. So let's do some research here. Pulling this up. Hopefully, I don't get kicked off of Google for showing Google Maps. Oops, and that's going to show you where I live. So let me scroll out a little bit. So as an example, let's go to Hawaii, the Hawaiian Islands. So this is the island of Hawaii. And to give you an idea, size of Hawaii main island, or the Big Island as they usually call it. That is 4,000 square miles. Let's see if we can get a better sense. Area 4,000 square miles, highest elevation. Is there like a... like I prefer a width, how wide is it at its widest kind of idea. Highest elevation, not very helpful. But how big is the state of Connecticut? How big square? Okay, fair enough. So this is how many? How much was it? 4,000 square miles. And to give you an idea, this has, you can see all of these towns and cities on here. You had the, you'll have Honolulu as well. Not sure where Honolulu is. Why can I not see Honolulu? I would assume, I've only been to Hawaii like once. Huh? Am I crazy? Is that not the Big Island? That's the Big Island, clearly. Okay, I'm just not seeing it. Unless I have to zoom in like really close, but that would make no sense. I mean, we're talking Honolulu. Is that Honolulu? That's Mauna Loa. I'm not sure what's going on there. Not sure why we don't get that. But 63 miles across, fair enough. So 63 miles across. So yeah, in the dozens of miles, it's a fairly big island. In comparison, how far across is Australia? And we have about 2,400 miles for Australia in terms of width. That's really, really huge. So we're thinking thousands of square miles. Yeah, agreed. So most ocean islands are roughly the size of Hawaii's Big Island. So you have settlements. You can have a big city. You can have some towns, some villages. I like that. And then you can have some really big ones. Australia, again, is basically a continent. It's a small continent. And that would be the extreme upper limit. Cool, I like that. All right, so there's islands in the ocean, mostly Hawaii-sized. Which about the Sky Islands? Sweet. And again, we agree that the Sky Islands are generally somewhat smaller. So we'll say, maybe a quarter to a half the size of the ocean islands. Cool, that takes care of that. We've taken care of all of that stuff. Settlements. Okay, so now we get into some interesting questions. I just want to double check something real quick. Cool. We're halfway through. So let's take a moment. Let's pause. We've got some great ideas here, but we've been world building for an hour. So let's take a step back. I'm going to take a drink. It's important when you're creative to pause occasionally, just reset the mind a little bit so you don't tire yourself out and make weird decisions later on. And so let's see. Let's review real quick. So we have these sky islands being more or less towed or magically connected to the sea islands. Magic is based on these sort of currents in the sky called the dragon flow. And based on where you are, that's stronger or weaker. Magic is itself relatively new and practiced by small cloisters of magic users. There's a lot of clockwork in this world, especially on the ocean, in the ocean islands, and so a lot of the farming is done in the Sky Islands, which brings up a question we'll get to in a second. The the wooden clockwork has traditionally been how clockwork has been made, but there are two new innovations: ironwood, which is a magical innovation, and metal, which is entirely mined by merfolk, and have a cartel where they sell this metal to regular society, and then but that allows folks to create cool clockwork and magically infused clockwork. You can only infuse metal with magic, but you also have artifacts. I totally agree, Jay. Artifacts need a price. That was actually in the back of my mind, and I did not write it down. We use by non-spellcasters, but they have a serious drawback. Yeah, I like the idea of some prolonged effect. Again, using the sort of drug addiction metaphor, that prolonged exposure to the relics have some kind of effect, like radiation or something like that, something that corrupts you over time, where you just get, and it wouldn't necessarily be directly magical, but your innards fry, slowly over time, or it takes time off your life, totally, especially if it's like time based. Sanity, yeah, everyone loves sanity. Maybe magic doesn't like to be contained, and so when you try to do that, when you try to contain magic and then use that magic that's contained, that just using it affects your sanity because it's in this unnatural state. Or bad luck, true. The advantage of bad luck is it's nicely ill-defined, where just everyone says, "Oh, you have bad luck" when you use these relics, but who can say, right? And so people can just pass off, "Oh, well, yes, I lost gambling in that one time, but that's not the thing, right?" That's possible. So they have a serious long-term drawback. So we're saying radiation, maybe, or bad luck. Sanity, bad luck. All good options. They could be unique to the person as well. Perhaps unique to the person. Oh, right, because magic is that totally unique to the person, e.g., because magic is personalized, right? So that totally makes sense. If those who have natural magic, it's personalized to them. Those who use physical objects, they have some personal bad effect from doing that. That's cool. I think that makes it that adds a consistency, but also allows the author or the creator or whatever to define that specifically to the person, and then you can obviously if you're I was gonna say if you're a good writer, but that's a tough thing to say. You're a good writer, you're a bad writer, but you would want that to be something that is a plot unique thing or a character specific thing, where it's not just it just happens to be this thing. No, this person is a gambler, and their use of this magic item affects their luck, or they're a parent with young children and it takes years off their life, right? That kind of stuff. It should be very character driven, that drawback. Yeah, or I like that, Jay. You could also have different sources, and then that has different aspects. So if it's draconic, maybe it's individualized, but demonic, or vice versa. I like that. We'll think about that. All right, so we have magic controlling different things to different people. It is unique. Still relatively small scale. Again, we're not destroying continents with this yet. Relics are powerful, but generally used, they can be used by non-spellcasters. I really love these idea of magicians in cloistered communities and just the very distinctive culture you get out of that. Different lines of power. So you mean different areas would create different, have different effects on magic? Seems complicated. Possible. It seems complicated. All right, let's think a little bit about settlements. So, okay. Before we get to that, actually, I have some questions. How does the farmed food get from the Sky Islands down to the Ocean Islands? They have this magic tether, and that's nice, but you can't just, drop an ear of corn down, How does that happen? How do people move? Good question. Is it teleportation magic? Is it vehicles moving up and down? Is it like physical ropes with buckets going up and down? Clockwork dragons, right? Like what is the? How does that work? Teleportation cycles, airships, balloons. And like ballooning balloons, right? Like big balloons. Guidelines, yeah. Airships on guidelines. But looking at what the islanders believe the ancient dragons look like. The downside of clockwork dragons is that means that how do they do it before they figure out how to make a clockwork dragon? Like that's a very complicated thing to make. And so it feels a little rococo for something that that mundane. I totally love the idea of there being clockwork dragons that are used for things. But I think for something that you're doing, every day, potentially, on every island, that just feels a little odd to me. It just feels like it would be more, more pragmatic, more practically constructed. Although, granted, over time things do tend to get more rococo. So it could be that, initially they were very mundane, but folks built more and more things onto them until they came to resemble clockwork dragons. Cables, definitely. So we could kind of combine a lot of these ideas. We could say that, because I love the idea of clockwork dragon airships. I think those should totally be a part of the world. But maybe the food goes up and down on, more simple airships that are on cables, but that have become more and more advanced over time. Right, yeah. So these are the normal supply lines. And so folks have been making those vehicles more and more, adding sculptures onto them and so forth. Okay, so let's say... food is transported. Food and other trade is delivered by guidelines vehicles traveling on guideline wires. Yeah. These vehicles are simple on poorer islands, but intricately carved to look like fanciful animals on more prosperous ones. There are also airships, including those carved to look like also clockwork airships, carved to look like dragons, and are considered the most not powerful, most effective, maybe. Like, that gives them something extra. I like that. Airships for warfare, definitely. Perhaps dragon airships are the military ones. Perhaps perhaps the various militaries carves their airships to look like dragons, and that's what sets them apart from average people's airships. Possible. Possible. I'm just gonna note that down. I'm not sold on it yet. Perhaps military airships are all carved to look like dragons. It could be an interesting aesthetic choice. All right. So getting back to that water, how do the floating islands, the sky islands, get fresh water? Because they will have no normal source of water. A couple options: rainwater collecting if there's a lot of rain, magical water portals. There's just a magical thing that just generates water, a magical spring, basically. It could be hauled up in buckets on the guidelines, on the guide wires. And that could be kind of the trade. Water goes up, food comes down. And that could be an interesting question for the Sky Islanders is, okay, if we do break off from the sea island, how do we get water? Right? Rain, cloud collecting. Cloud collecting is a neat idea. That's nice and fantastical. And kind of evocative, the idea of moving over to a cloud and sort of collecting it somehow. That's a neat idea. Steam forms harvesting from the seas. Ooh, interesting. Can the Sky Islands suck up water from the ocean and purify it somehow? I like the visual of a Sky Island, positioning itself and then just seeing this sort of column of water rise up into the center of the island, into some sort of water purification thing. It's a neat visual. Maybe steaming water. I don't know. We know the biggest dependence on the water to eat. True. Yeah. That could also be a technology that some islanders have developed. So it could be we figured out how to break our dependence on the sea islands, but it's not common, right? Okay, so it sounds like we like the idea that the Sky Islands are dependent on the sea islands for water. So we'll start there. Fresh water is sent up to the Sky Islands, except for a few that have developed a way to draw up water from the oceans and purify it. That's interesting. There's work that are working on a way. So you have the occasional experiments where an island will go over and try to draw up water, but they can only purify 1/100th of the water they pull up, and so the economics aren't working out yet. Cool. I like that idea. It adds a neat sort of question mark on the world that, if a story pushes that over the edge, then the world changes in neat ways. Like the factory that collects the steam and transfer water and separate it from the air. Yeah. I'm just gonna also say I also like the idea of cloud harvesting. Like that could be another tech that's being worked on, or again is usable but not practical all the time. So maybe that's an option. All right. We have water, we had food, we have trade. Trade's fairly obvious. These islands are all moving around, so they get near, they can trade. We can pretty much assume boats as well as airships, right? Folks will have boats to move back and forth between things. Pretty normal stuff. All right, so let's talk about settlements for a moment. So settlements are not just islands. We're also talking about, what does a village look like? What does a town look like? We know how they get their water. We know how they get their food. And so we can assume, especially on the Sky Islands, that's going to be fairly distributed, although maybe not. We know how they trade resources back and forth with the bottom. But what does leadership and family structure look like in a settlement? And how do you handle that? So I'm assuming in this sort of society, we have large islands, so you can have a wide variety of family structures. Nothing's going to really change that. Although you have a lot of people on a fairly small amount of land. So with a lot of people, what do families look like? Do you have the traditional nuclear family? Do you have the sort of Japanese EA style where it's a generational family all living in the same house? Do you have more communal living where it's sort of more tribe-based with, families, yes, but it's really more this collection of parents, cousins, uncles, aunts, nephews, etc., all basically really living together as one large family unit? How would all of that work, do we think? It's an interesting thought, interesting question. Because nothing about this society really suggests anything really strongly one way or the other so far. Communalish for space savings at the elite. Could you imagine consider your family until your 16th birthday? Impossible. Sky Island's tribal. Okay, yeah. That would make sense. Again, Sky Islands are much smaller. So that sounds more common. Communalish for space saving. This is all making sense to me so far. I do like the idea that there is a difference in terms of family structure between Sky Islands and Sea Islands, but it's not drastically different because one came from the other. So the Sea Islands are more Japanese, multi-generational families. Yeah, but the Sky Islands are more tribal because you have that smaller areas. Merfolk are nomadic nuclear, but have planet. I love all that. Okay. Families. Family structure. I think this all totally makes sense. Sea Islanders live in extended families in the same house. But live in, I don't want to say extended family, I want to say multi-generational families. Yeah, whatever. Sky Islanders live more tribally. Merfolk have nomadic nuclear families, but strong clan networks. I think those are all distinct enough that they give each one their own culture, but they complement each other nicely. You can also have religion be involved. We have not touched on religion yet. We will get to that. Religion is a whole other thing. A lot of folks like to start with religion, but I find you get quickly wrapped up in questions of religion that aren't really all that relevant to like social structure. So we'll get to that here momentarily. In fact, so we have that idea. At what point do children leave the house, or do they? Dragon part of their religion as well. That's certainly true. So children, and this again might be different in different societies. Um, why is that showing up as? Oops. Oh, one word. Okay. So if you have a multi-generational family, you might, at what point do you take over that family? It might be much older, right? So you might get married, whatever that means, at a certain age, but then you may not take over the household until you're much older than that, for example. Whereas in nuclear families, folks tend to, when they marry, they then branch out on their own and they're forming their own family like immediately. But that transfer of power might be a lot later. And then tribal society is very different. It can be very, very weird. Let's see here. That's kind of my view on world building, Solari. Religion is built by a society. You don't start with religion and then build a society around it. So we're thinking, and again, we're assuming humans, and even the merfolk will use, again, human equivalent ages. So we're thinking like mid to late adolescence. They leave their pod in around 16, 18 years old. So let's go with that. Same house. These are going to be separate paragraphs now. Separate sections. Why is okay? Hold on. I'm very frustrated because the way this should be working is add space after paragraph. Oh, nope. Update normal text to match. There we go. That's how it should be. Okay. That's much cleaner, much easier to read. In the same house. Children establish families around 16 to 18, but do not take over the household until maybe 30 years old. I don't have a great idea there. Well, 818 years old. Let's fix that. Sorry. They leave the pod around 68 years old to establish new families. New nuclear families. Merfolk lived to be 818 years old. I didn't know you know that. Tribal societies. So we can go pretty far off the reservation here if you want to. That's probably a politically incorrect term now. But we can get pretty distinct here. You can have completely communal societies where there's no parentage per se, where you're born and then you're raised by the community, and you may know who your biological father and mother are, but it's really more of a tribal society. Or it can be something where you're basically raised by your mother and father, with the tribe helping out, but it's a little closer to a nuclear family. Matriarchal, great question. We'll get back to that. So is tribal society like intensely communal? But then how does leadership work would be the question. We could say actually, what I like is the idea that children are raised communally, though they know their biological father and mother. I misspelled communally. I should know that's two L's. Father, mother, and get, I'm going to say, primary care from them. So I don't want to go entirely socialist, full scale. That usually doesn't work very well with humans. That is, more accurately, those kinds of societies are so far beyond the norm of human experience that it's just it's hard to imagine being raised in a society where everybody is your parent, and it's hard to be effective that way. There are societies that have done that in the past and have tried that, but it generally doesn't work out very well. Partly because of the matriarchal and patriarchal instincts. It's just really hard for parents to just say, "Oh well, I don't care who you are anymore." And again, it's a fantasy world. We could do that, but we'll say that there is a like a hierarchy, if you will, of care, where the biological father and mother have more say than everyone else, but everyone else still has a very strong role, right? They have noticeably more say in the raising of their children, but others are still strong parts of that relationship. Okay, so see here. Yeah, you have lots of aunts and uncles, and they're very, very much involved in your upbringing, and they may be very pushy, but your biological father and mother are still going to have some level of ability to override that. Okay, so Merfolk patriarchal, Sea Islands matriarchal, and the Sky Islands neither. Interesting. Leader is whoever has most members in the tribe. But if it's tribal, so here's the question: are the Sky Islands all one tribe, or are they multiple tribes? I was imagining one tribe, but I may be off on that. The complexity with the matriarchal society is how you deal with pregnancy, and the fact that pregnancy pulls women away from the day-to-day. Not that women can't, handle that, but it does change how you have power. It changes how power is handled. So we want to think a little bit about that in terms of how society is managed when those in power can't get around much, at certain key times, and if they could, rule from a distance or things along those lines. But I still like the idea, so let's say that. Islanders are matriarchal. And also that does work out nicely with the multi-generational families living in the same house, where, if you have that larger group there, then the matriarch can stay at home and, give out her orders and things like that. But she doesn't need to be traveling all over the world or all over the island necessarily. She can send out her kids to do that, or send out, her husband or whatever. Let's see here. Let's see. Just scrolling. Sky Islands live more tribally, and leadership might be patriarchal or matriarchal. Patriarchal. Cool. Merfolk are patriarchal and have nomadic nuclear families. And again, there could be some biological things around the merfolk as well. Cool. I like that. I like that a lot. Each island is set nearby its islands a small tribe. So, and I guess it'll also depend on the islands. Some will consider themselves to be, all one tribe. Both the Sky Islanders and the Sea Islanders, they're all one peoples. While others will have a much more distinct, differentiation there. Kind of like Japan, where you have, people in different parts of the country consider themselves to have pretty distinct, local culture, but they're also Japanese. Although I guess that's true anywhere, right? That's not unique to Japan. Texans consider themselves to be pretty unique within the United States, and same thing with other parts of a country. So Sky Islanders are more about who is the strongest person in charge. Yeah, because you have sort of that that colonial idea, but based on whoever is strongest. And we could define what those rituals are. Patriarchal. Hand-to-hand battles. And that could be something where, it's evolved to something that is very much, about feats of strength, but everyone realizes that's kind of silly. So they choose leaders based on feats of strength, but it's really not the most effective system. People know that, but just society hasn't addressed it yet. So we could do that as well. Whoever is strongest. Let's just say that right now. Though this is now considered outdated, and some Sky Islanders have new methods based on wisdom, magical ability, etc. So you might have a Sky Island where to be a leader you have to be able to cast magic. Right? You might even have some where you cannot cast magic and be a leader, right? Or it could also be quite varied. So I like that even better, actually. But based on some test of strength or wisdom or magical ability, etc. Cool. Yeah. So some of them are strength based, some of them are wisdom based, whatever. Tallest one could be. Your height does affect your salary, on average, in the U.S. The taller you are, the higher your salary, to a certain point. Yeah. CEOs are, I think, 3 inches taller than the average employee. It's weird. All right. That's all cool. I really like how we have some distinctive traits here, distinctive differences here. All right, we'll get into religion. So I'm really big on religion, and on being on defining your religion based on the kinds of stories you want to tell. I think just dropping in a random religion isn't particularly helpful. I'd rather you just not have any religion at all, or just say religion exists. But if you're going to have a religion, I think it should be tied to the kinds of world you have, and the kind of stories you're trying to tell. Meaning, getting back to anime, there's an anime, and I'm forgetting the name of it now, but it's the main character is a girl who, when she was born, was prophesied to be the one that's going to destroy the world. And so she was, they basically threw her off a cliff when she was a baby, when she was rescued, and has been kept in secret. And when she, now that she's grown up, people realize she's that, and there are all these religious people who come after her, trying to kill her, so that she will not cause the end of the world. Scrap Princess, thank you, that's the one. Scrap Princess. And so, that religion is there specifically to tell a story about religious fundamentalism, right? And about the question of how far do you follow your religion? At what point is your religion, your religious precepts, doing bad things, that kind of thing. So that is a very deliberate use of religion, and I think that's very important. So when we think about religion, I agree. Dragons should certainly be involved in some way. But let's start with thinking about deities. Most cultures have this idea that there are larger powers at work in the world. And I think, and again, this is where you want to try to be respectful of religion and not to treat it as hocus pocus, or as ancient hokum, as they say. So you have so the way I like to go about that personally is asking again if you want religion or not. But I think again we have dragons; it'll make sense. So the question is, what do the gods signify, right? What are the important storytelling things that we want to highlight? And let's build deities or supernatural powers, supernatural entities around those themes. So it's not just we'll have a god of the sun and a god of the moon and a god of the harvest and a god of earth and a god of right. I think encyclopedic deities are not very interesting. Let's see here. I do like the idea of a dragon creator deity myth. So let's start there. And again, and like folks say, we can have a lot of differentiation here. Different folks can believe different things in our world. Religion. A common creation myth involves a dragon creator god. So we start there. That's cool. Religion could definitely be tied to magic. Magic could be seen as religious, right? Where magic is a gift of the gods, whether it is or whether that is literally true or not. Dragon goddess takes the form of a young girl, cool. Creator goddess that also has the form of a young girl. Actually, let's say has the forms of a young girl, pregnant mother, or crone. So we'll do the maiden mother crone thing, right? Because a god of creation you would imagine to be pregnant. So you'd have that form, but you also have the innocent that was there before the creation of the world. The maiden, and then the wise crone who has seen everything, knows everything, unless the dragon creator died, and then would not have a that aspect to it possible. Or it could be different genders. That's certainly possible too. Could tie into the matriarchal thing as well. Interesting. Goddess of a child. Pregnant. Pregnancy is complicated here, assuming we have similar biological sexes. Dragon flow is the flame of the dragon creator. I love that. The dragon flow is the flame of the dragon creator. Again, metaphorically or literally. That's really cool. Dragon creator died became. Oh, excellent. Yes, involves a dragon creator who died and became the islands of the world. It also has the form of a young child. Again, depending on your view of that, that tying into the idea that it was this innocent that then created all these things. So the mother and crone don't really fit very nicely. That's cool. Reincarnation could also certainly be part of that. No, I didn't. Its bones. Let's say its bones became the islands of the world. That's really awesome. Could be reincarnation. There could be reincarnated. There could be a legend that something will cause the reincarnation. Actually, yeah. There is a legend that the dragon creator will be reincarnated, which will cause some apocalypse. Because if the dragon is reincarnated, what happens to her bones? Or his bones, or its bones, right? Do all of those vanish? Does the world end? What would happen as a result of that? So there are all sorts of apocalyptic views on that. The floor, the tears of her dead dragon children. Wow. Or the ocean. Souls have to feel the magic, therefore staying in the form of a god. Interesting. I like all this. What else is important in this world? What else is kind of key to people's life and experiences that you can imagine them having a deity of? We have magic. We have water. So, is there a god of water that is perhaps a child, perhaps a creation of the creator god, or could be a sibling, a different thing? If the islands are the bones of the god, are the oceans part of some other god, or related back to the creator god? Yeah, and you have merfolk as well. Water, food, metal. Wood as well, certainly, but not necessarily a god. Again, we have this ocean world. So water is ever present, and you have current the dragon flow as well. So I can imagine them being some legend about where the water came from. It can either be from that. I kind of like the idea, since islands and water exist kind of in tension, that they are separate creations, that it's not the creator god created everything, but you have, dry land as one god and water as another god, whether one is a progenitor of the other or whatever, or whether they're siblings perhaps, or one came out of somewhere else. You certainly have religions, by the way, where these gods came along and did this, and then other gods came along from somewhere else and took up where they left off. So you can just have, other gods appeared one day, two dragons in competing harmony, or perhaps they fought. Perhaps the god of water and the god of land fought, and the god of land was killed, and then its body became all the islands. So the water god won, which again would kind of make sense if the if the bones of the dragon fell out. We could certainly have a sky dragon, sky god. Perhaps the sky god and the water god teamed up on the creator dragon. That's possible. And so it's kind of a myth around the idea that you can have three people in tension, but if one gangs up on another one, then that'll happen. Water god won, and the world flooded. Interesting. Or the land sunk and was taken over by the water. And again, these could all be competing perspectives on the world. Merfolk's created as the Sky Father. They were banished to sea, and islanders stole their place. Interesting. Let me type that down a little bit. There's definitely something. The Merfolk's creator is a Sky Father. And again, patriarchal society, so that would work. And they were banished to the sea. And the islanders stole their place. I just copied and pasted effectively. And I also really love the idea that the merfolk no longer worship that god. They worship other gods because he abandoned them, or sent them away. 3 dragons were the creator. Oh, that's interesting. I like that. Involves 3 dragons. Earth, air, and water. Fire is a whole other thing. They lived in harmony until the earth, until the they did not live in harmony. They existed in balance, sometimes in harmony and sometimes in conflict, until the air and water dragons, and water dragons teamed up on the earth dragon and killed it. The earth dragon's bones became the islands of the world. And has the form of a young child. The dragon flow is the flame of the air dragon, obviously. Cool. Till the Fire Nation attacked. Till the Fire Nation attacked. Perhaps people caused. Ooh, that's interesting. Until the people encouraged the air and water dragons to team up on the earth dragon and kill it. The earth dragons died, destroying the land, and its bones became the islands of the world. It often is seen as having the form of a young child. So, yeah, the island was left of the earth dragon. Destroying the land and its bones became the islands of the world. So, that's cool. And this is a very classic mythological sort of structure. This idea that, or mythological trope, that people already existed, and there was some kind of land that existed, but by killing the earth dragon, that land was destroyed and replaced by the dragon. But this is all land, and there's land before, but there's a land dragon, right? So it's not meant to be like a literal description of the events that happened. It is a metaphorical description for probably some apocalypse that actually happened. There was something that caused, the shattering of the world, and it might have been actually related to dragons, but the kind of mythological form of that is this. And very nicely, this has that nice mythical idea that people, it is the squabbling of people that caused this to happen. It is something coming in. It could also be the fire dragon that caused the squabbling. The fire dragon could be what encouraged the water and air dragons to team up against the earth dragon, which caused the fire dragon to be banished. So the fire dragon now lives in a volcano somewhere, right? Mythologically speaking. We could do that because then you get some cool magical stuff going on. In terms of different sources of magic intertwining. Because the downside of having it be people is why? Why would people encourage dragons to fight each other? It would be a little neater if it was like a fire dragon that did that. And then it becomes some epic thing somewhere else. Again, I'm trying to figure out the central metaphor of all this. the central metaphor is that, well, the lesson is don't team up against your siblings, basically, right? Um, and so the the fire dragon became humans. Ooh, ooh. Did the fire dragon destroy itself in horror and what it did? It died itself, and out of its body came humanity. Um, the dragon is the dragon had such remorse over the death of its sibling that it died and then created this new life out of it. Yeah, that's the thing, William. It's a weird. I like the idea that people had some responsibility involved, but having it be all these bad people is weird for a creation myth by people. It's a very self-destructive myth. Um, and creation myths generally are not self-destructive. They're much more creative. Duh. Um, I also like the idea, like you say, that the fire dragon is hidden in the core of is the hidden core of the planet. Um, Love is mostly underwater. The fire dragon was envious. Envy is a common theme. That's true. And in a society, ooh. Okay, our society is communal, right? Everyone's living packed together. So the four dragons had a fight over property. The fire dragon wanted something that the earth dragon had, but could not defeat the earth dragon, and so caused his siblings to gang up on him so he could have that possession. But then that possession, was his downfall. Perhaps that is could be territory dispute. Um, Perhaps that possession is like a life creator of some kind. Take the life away from the Earth Dragon, and the Earth Dragon, collapses and creates the islands. The Fire Dragon now has the possession of life, and and then with that creates humanity. Yeah, and because what comes out of the earth? Plants and life. That works. Okay, cool. We got there. We all got there. Four dragons: earth, air, fire, and water. The earth dragon had the what would dragons have as possessions? Necklace, ring, ring of life. Possessed the ring of life, which the fire dragon envied and wanted for himself. The fire dragon could not defeat the earth dragon on his own, assuming male. It just kind of feels right. So convinced his siblings to gang up on the earth dragon. But once the ring of life was pulled from the earth dragon's finger, the earth dragon died, the earth was destroyed, and the earth dragon's bones became the islands of the world. The fire dragon was so filled with remorse at the consequences of his actions that he used the ring of life to create humanity and spread out over the islands of the world. And spread over the islands of the world. We'll just stop there. Yeah, it could be like a collar, it could be a ring. So one thing was pulled from the Earth Dragon. We'll just say Earth Dragon. Cool. The dragon flow said to be the flame of the air dragon, or possibly the fire dragon. Who knows? Legend that the Earth Dragon will be reincarnated, which will cause some apocalypse. Cool. That's really neat. And that ties into humans being very emotional, being very spirited, the fire, being very fiery in their beliefs and in their actions, as opposed to animals being more naturalistic. But humans have that spark of creativity and so forth. So the fire kind of works. And metal. The metal ring of life. Metal's magical. That's awesome. That is fantastic. That's really, really cool. This is one of the reasons I love world building, is that inevitably you come to this point where all of these threads all just kind of weave together in beautiful ways. This is really, really awesome. Cool. And what I love about this particularly is that this is a very evocative myth to have as a basis for a story in your world. You could tie this into a quest. You could tie this into some magical thing that somebody's trying to get. You're going after some artifact that is like a literal physical bone of the Earth Dragon, or it's something else that one of the dragons possessed, or it's something that has a reflection of the Ring of Life or whatever. You can really tie this into a world in fun ways, and you could have metaphors. You could say, watch yourself. You do not want to repeat the mistake of the fire dragon, right? All that kind of stuff works together. That's really neat. Okay, so we have one more thing. We have about just a few minutes before I'd start the weekly dig. And I like to spend the last few minutes thinking about some of the major factions in this world, which we already have some of, which can really help. I think we've already handled Dragons Are a Thing. In fact, I think that is the title of this, are a thing. Factions. What are the major factions of this world? Merfolk, obviously. The Merfolk group. We have each island's Sea Islanders versus the Sky Islanders, right? So the natural tension between those two groups. You'll have that. We have cloistered magic users. That's there. Watered Elite. The Islanders, Elite versus Plebs, and that group versus the Sky Islanders. That's really cool. Let's see here. What other sort of natural things would you have here? Are you going to have people who don't live on islands? Will you have folks who just live on boats, traveling from island to island, nomads? In big boat fleets or whatever. I just answered my own question. Nomadic boat boat nomads in fleets. I think that's pretty cool. A holy kingdom, certainly possible. Let's just say some highly religious kingdom, island, etc. There should be some faction, some island that considers itself to be very closely tied to the dragons, closely tied to all these things, and considers themselves like holier than thou. Exactly. Yeah, this is totally a campaign world. I can imagine myself writing a lot of stuff in this. Can Merfolk and Islanders interbreed? Oh, interesting question. I'm just going to add that as a question. I don't have a strong opinion on that one way or the other. Can islanders and merfolk interbreed? Is there a hybrid race that everyone else hates? Interesting. Do we have dragon folk? Are there like lizard people, right? Who might be considered holy, or might be considered bad? Let myth stay mythic. Yeah, that's fair. So what would be? You have these islands. Dolphins, whales, yes. Although I kind of like the idea of there being like lizard people, that people are like, holy crud, what's that? You know, are they the blessed of the dragons? Like, what do we do with that? I'm not gonna put it in the setting, but I can imagine that being a story in the setting where somebody comes across, Dragonborn, and they're like, whoa! Like, is this a coming? Are these people the foretold of the dragons? But yeah, let's see here. Do we have so we're saying like dolphin people or whale people? Is that what we're talking about? Some kind of race like that? Could I have the idea of demons? The circle around magic? Ooh, interesting. Alligator crocodile people, fish people. I do like the idea of there being some other like weird source of magic, like a demonic source of magic. The other product produced by the fire dragon. Ooh, and then demons being okay. Yeah, let's say demonic. We'll put that in quotes. Demons. I'm just gonna throw it up here somewhere. Do we have an area for that? Magic is rational. I'm just gonna add a note. There is also demon magic, and that could be like contractual. It could be very that works very differently than dragon magic. So again, it could be I make a contract with the demon, and now I have this very repeatable, clear power. Demons were created by the fire dragon, maybe, or the demons could even just be like a result of what the fire dragon did, like not intentional, but just some outpouring. The merfolk maybe went downward to get all the demonic magic, like the island folk went up for the dragon flow. Ooh, that's cool. Way differently from dragon magic. Demons are created by the fire dragon. They are encountered in the depths of the sea and mostly used by merfolk. That's interesting. That's really cool. So merfolk have demon magic, and islanders have dragon magic. That's really interesting. And maybe the merfolk say, no, dragons, that's, demons came first. The demons were there, they created everything, and they created the dragons, and the dragons will tell you that they created the world. No. Demons are where it's at. And then you have certain mutations you just get from the gods. Let's throw that in there. Heavy magic use can result in. Is that where magic is? Magic is rational. I put it in here somewhere. Heavy magic use can result in physical mutations that are often seen as gifts from the dragons or demons. That's fun. Beast people. I do like beast people. Some sky people could have bat-like qualities. That's cool. And you could have total, you could have entire groups that all have the same mutation. Some of these mutations could breed true. So one person gets, wings as a result of this, and then their children have wings. Okay, yeah. Let's say human merfolk, human islanders and merfolk can interbreed, but they rarely conceive. So technically possible, but like no one really knows of anyone that's in normal social circles you wouldn't come across somebody who's the result of that. Um, Not very keen on the idea of having several races or species. Fair point. We don't want to go too crazy with this. Although we could also say that what we're talking about is just the known world, and there's a continent just over the horizon, which is full of craziness. Um, um, the other question too is how disparate the islands are. Like, are the islands all near each other, or could there be islands that are way out there that are very that are separate enough that they trade every so often, but they could have developed very different racial characteristics. So you could have winged people on this one island that people rarely see. Merfolk could have been humans that went into the sea to find the demon flow. That's a cool idea. There could be other continents. So we'll say that in there, I don't think it's demons. However, while they can occasionally breed true, that is exceedingly rare. So again, we may have one or two islands where people have, a pronounced spine, or Klingon foreheads or something like that. But you're not going to get harpies on one island and dragonborn on another, and anything too crazy there. Cool. Okay, we're a little bit past 9. This has been awesome. What I'm going to do right now is find my mouse. There it is. We'll switch back over to here. I'm going to hit share. Get shareable link. And here is our shared world document. So I just pasted a link to that document over in OnCon General. So if anyone wants to, actually what I should do, hold on, can comment. I'm assuming that you all can comment on that now. I don't have to reshare the comment version of that. I'm still a little uncertain how it handles all that. Let's see here. Just got to double check something. That's weird. One second. Oh. Oopsie. All right. So it's 9 p.m. It's weekly dig time. We're in the middle of OnCon, so we'll just do normal anime talking stuff. So you should be able to comment on that. Feel free to let me know if that's not working at any point, and I'll be happy to integrate your comments in there. I found if I share a document that anyone can edit, then inevitably folks just make mistakes and accidentally delete the entire thing, and you can recover it, but it just gets too chaotic. The comments are just a lot easier for a large number of people to all work on at once. Then I can just merge all those in. So yeah, that's going to be a thing, and we're going to come back to that. I want to do RPGs in that world. I want to flesh out more of that world, like 4 RPGs. I might write a story or two. This definitely has a lot of potential. If nothing else, I might just create a little flyer, a little like handout that says, okay, here's a D&D Merfolk, here's a D&D Islander, here are all kind of the basic stuff. So that's really cool. So important question to someone in the chat room, is the news ready? I have been so busy with this. I have not had a chance to check at all. Look at that. I'm seeing stuff. Wow. You don't get paid enough. I'm just saying. Let's see here. So I need to put together the news stories for today. I might do this simply. I'm going to do this simply. So we all get to hang out for a moment. I like the demons. I think the demons can work. We're not, and they don't have to be like literal, like, Christian demons. They can be metaphorical demons. So today I'm going to do the news stories without images because it just takes me a little while to copy those down and paste them in and all that kind of stuff. So we're just going to do this a little more quickly than we normally do. Doop, 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 doop. And just give me a moment or two here to talk. Feel free to continue throwing ideas out and discussion as I just do a little bit of copying and pasting here. And then we will get to all that stuff. I don't really have many easy ways of doing this or anything I can kind of, say or recite. I don't think I could really recite anything here without completely losing track of what I'm doing. Doop, doop, almost there. Cool. Oops. All right. Turn that off, and then I think we're good to go. Oops. Turn that off. We've gotten this down to be about as easy as possible, but there are still certain aspects that just take a little while. So for the images for the news, Becca is kind enough to put all those in a document. But then I have to save each of those images, move them to my move them to another drive so they're not just sitting in the downloads folder, and then in OBS pull up each one and add that as an image to the thing. So it just takes a few minutes to do. So it's not something that I can just kind of really do in 30 seconds, but it's about as fast as I can possibly be. Cool. So let me just throw this in here. Give me a sec. You guys can see my process. Although Google Drive isn't being very happy with me right now. I guess it's a large document. While I'm thinking of it, Becca, if you could do me a favor at some point and archive some of the older news into another document, because I just realized our anime news document is now, what did it say? 245 pages. So it's getting a little chunky. So just cut and paste, some chunk of that somewhere. Like we don't need to delete it, but it doesn't need to all be in there now. I did not notice until like right this second. So just noticed. That's what happens when you do a lot of news. Cool. All right, that's there. So I've copied the news text into a document, and now I pull that document up on my phone, and then I refresh Google Docs on my phone so it sees the change. Then I pull that up. I wait for it to actually refresh. Then I select all and copy. And then I pull up my little teleprompter. Wait for that to load. There's a splash screen. Then I pull up the anime news, edit that document, select all, delete, paste, double check, everything looks good, save. Do y'all hear that? That took not as long as I thought. Okay. Get this going over here, and we will be ready to go. Cool, cool, cool. Blink. Blink. Good evening, and welcome to the latest anime news for the week ending March 28th, 2020. This week, we will start off with some new anime entries in already established franchises. So let's get right to it. First up, Takara Tomi's We Cross Presentation 2020 live stream announced this week that a new entry is on its way in the We Cross franchise. The television anime series is set to come out sometime in 2020, so fans won't have to wait too long. Obviously, exact production numbers are going to be a little complicated. In the world of We Cross, girls compete in card game battles for a chance to have their wishes granted. Takara Tomy originally released the We Cross card game in April of 2014. The first anime series based on the game also premiered that month, with further anime in the series premiering in 2016 and 2018. So this is a heavy cross-promotion kind of a franchise. The 12th and final episode of this season's Show by Rock Mashumaesh anime aired this week, and with it came the announcement for the next entry in the Show by Rock franchise. The new series in Sanrio's Animal Band franchise will be titled Show by Rock Stars, a lot easier for non-Japanese folks to pronounce, and will feature existing bands from the franchise. The cast members of the bands will be reprising their roles, as well as many of the staff from the previous shows. Release date has not yet been announced, but the anime will be airing on Tokyo MX, BS Fuji, and Hokkaido Cultural Broadcasting Company at whatever point in which it does premiere. So, more of that coming. Cool. Last up this week, the 17th issue of Kodansha's weekly shonen magazine announced that the Seven Deadly Sins manga is also getting a new anime series. The upcoming The Seven Deadly Sins Anger's Judgment series will premiere in October and will air on TV Tokyo and its network of channels and on BS TV Tokyo. So more for fans of that. This week's issue of Weekly Shonen Magazine saw the end of the manga series, which began publication all the way back in 2012. Along with the new anime, it was also announced that the franchise is getting a spin-off manga series, which is tentatively titled The Four Knights of the Apocalypse, along with a new stage play. So Seven Deadly Sins fans have lots to look forward to in the near future. One of the shonen franchises that is a little bigger than folks kind of expected. A new week in the current state of the world means a few more updates stemming from the COVID-19 outbreak, starting with a couple of major cancellations, unfortunately. But, let's get to it. You've likely heard this first announcement, but to confirm, the Tokyo 2020 Summer Olympics have been officially delayed. The International Olympic Committee will decide the details sometime in the next 4 weeks. Cancellation of the games is, quote, not an agenda, end quote. The committee is considering options like postponement from a few months to a year or holding a scaled down version of the games. Okay. Not sure what scaled down Olympic Games would look like, but whatever. I guess you could do fewer events, whatever. This week's other major cancellation is of the 98th Comic Market Dojin Convention, typically known as Comiket. The convention was scheduled to run from May 2nd to May 5th, but has been canceled to prevent the spread of the virus. A wise decision, as the previous Comiket event drew 750,000 attendees across 4 days. That is COVID-19 waiting to happen. The Comic Market 98 catalog will still go on sale in April, and the organizers of the convention have asked that people still purchase the catalog to support future events. That's one of the major ways in which they make money. They also noted that they cannot yet say whether the next few Comic-Cons will proceed as scheduled, as the Tokyo Big Sight venue cannot be guaranteed for the dates yet due to the postponement of the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. So that's rough. Ugh. Crunchyroll announced this week that they will also be suspending their recording of dubbed anime series. The company plans to continue working on tasks related to pre- and post-production of the dubs, but the actual recording will be put on hold for the foreseeable future. The affected series as of now are Inspector, Science Fell in Love, Somali and the Forest Spirit, and Welcome to Demon School Iruma-kun. Dub production on the Konosuba Legend of Crimson film will also be paused for the time being. The announcement ends with a message from the company saying, quote, "We'll do our best to keep fans of these series aware of any major adjustments to our production schedule, and thank you all for your patience as we focus on the safety of our cast and crew," end quote. So just to be clear, this is not going to affect like simulcast release dates, just the dubs so far. Our final COVID-related announcement is a more positive one. G-Kids announced on Thursday that it has added 18 of its films to the online Canopy service for free, including anime films A Letter to Momo, Fatima Inverted, and Welcome to the Space Show, and the Studio Ghibli documentary The Kingdom of Dreams and Madness. Sorry. A Canopy account can be created using either university information or public library information. So if you'd like to watch some G-Kids films during the quarantine, make sure you've got your library card. The site will apparently be adding even more G-Kids films soon, so keep an eye out for those. That's really cool. I might check that out. That's interesting. This week also brings a couple of sad announcements of a different kind. The passing of two figures in the classic anime industry. So let's go ahead and get to that. Sankichiro Kusube, who along with his brother founded Shin-A Animation, has passed away at the age of 82. He served as president and CEO of the company for 29 years before he retired and became its honorary chairperson. Shin-A Animation produces Crayon Shin-Chan and Doraemon, among other titles. Kusube himself played a major role in the production of the 1979 Doraemon anime. So sad to see that passing. Voice actor Hiroshi Masuoka passed away last week at age 83. He is best known for his roles as the second voice of Masuo in Sazai-san and as Jam Oji-san in Soreke Anpanman. Matsuoka began voicing Sazai-san in June of 1978 and in Soreke Anpanman when it premiered in 1988. He only retired from those roles last August. Dang. He also played roles in shows like Cyborg 009 and Dragon Ball Z, and has served as narrator for a number of various productions. Always sad when that happens. Our condolences go out to the friends and family of these two, as well as our thanks for all their contributions in our favorite children's classics. A lot of folks involved in the production of all of these things. Last up this week, it seems we aren't the only ones with the idea that this quarantine can't keep us from doing our otaku activities. Eromanga Sensei has opened up a limited-time virtual reality store selling goods from the Eromanga Sensei exhibit at the Tokyo Anime Center in 2019. Though the goods purchased in the virtual store will only be virtual versions, their real-life equivalents can be purchased from a different website. So a bit of a fun way of spending time during the quarantine. The store will be set up in the Gugenka virtual shop inside of VR chat through April 26th. Users can navigate through a 3D simulation of the store and interact with avatars of shopkeepers, which should be quite interesting. So yeah, if you want to spend some time in the Aramanga Sensei store world, you can do that now, I guess. That's all the news for this week. Thanks for watching. Yeah, virtual store with a real store. Not quite sure the point of that. I don't know. But whatever. That G-Kids announcement is really cool. There are quite a few. There are several of those movies I've been meaning to watch, and just haven't gotten around to. Because they were on DVD or other various places. They weren't easy. One moment. I've been talking for like 2.5 hours straight. I just realized that. And I needed to wet my whistle. That feels better. There. Yep, guest star has arrived. That's really cool of G-Kids to put a bunch of their stuff up for free. Especially the more, obviously the more kid-oriented stuff. Let me just pull up the list. And thanks to the awesome job that Becca always does, I can jump straight to that. Boink. Cat in Paris. Fun movie, but with a weird moral ending. Letter to Momo. Approved for Adoption. Chico and Rita. Problematic ending, but interesting. Eleanor's Secret. Ernest and Celestine. That is a gorgeous film. Ernest and Celestine is a beautiful, either French or Belgian animated film. Looks like a when you imagine like beautiful children's book art, like a really beautiful children's book art, that's that. It's animated to look exactly like that. The Girl Without Hands, haven't seen that. Kingdom of Dreams and Magnus. Mia and the Magoo, tried that one, wasn't really my thing. Nocturna, ooh yeah, Nocturnal's amazing visuals and really strong little kid story. The Painting Fatima Inverted, The Rabbi's Cat, you need to see that. Secret of Kells, really interesting. Visuals looking like Celtic knotwork. Sort of a flat Murakami kind of a style. Very, very evocative visual style. Cool story. Tales of the Night, Welcome to the Space Show. Wrinkles, dang. Wrinkles is a Spanish animated film set at an old folks home. And dealing with, everyone in there was they're in an old folks home. Many of them have dementia. Some of them have Alzheimer's. Like it's dealing with that whole thing. It's a really interesting film, and really hard in a lot of points. Ultimately, I would say positive, but oof, man. Oops, I gotta switch over. Wrong lower third. There we go. So a lot of good films on that list, and not just anime, just some really interesting films. Like Wrinkles is not a children's film. Wrinkles is not aimed at children. There's swearing in it. People do some very weird things. But yeah. That's a great list. So I might jump onto canopy.com and see what I can watch at some point. All right. I did not get a chance to check out anime history for this week. Let me just pull up the list. I probably won't do like a segment, like a full produced segment, but I would like to call out anything interesting going on. That's a good topic, Jay. Let me pull that up. My anime watching day was normally going to come up in a couple of weeks, but that might not happen. So anything interesting happened this week? Yeah. This was a problematic week in anime history. Wow. Well, not problematic, but just some ancient history this week. Not really anime related. So March 24th, 1860 was the Sakura-Damon incident. This was the assassination of Japanese Chief Minister Ii Naosuke. And this was basically the beginning of the revolution that opened Japan to the West. So this was the when Japan was decided to open up to Commodore Perry. There was this People's Revolution against that, and this was the first major act by the revolution, which ultimately succeeded in the Boshin War, essentially the first event of the Boshin War. That was this week. And then on March 25th, 1943, Momotaro's Sea Eagles premiered in Japan. A half-hour animated film about the bombing of Pearl Harbor, which prompted a lot of youth to sign up for the military, and was really one of the major causes for the creation and the production of Momotaro's Divine Sea Warriors, which came out 2 years later. The first feature-length animated film in Japan. So it started anime in a way. It was another step on the path towards anime, but man, yeah, Momotaro's Sea Eagles. That's actually where Momotaro's Divine Sea Warriors kind of came from. Momotaro's Sea Eagles was this half-hour film about cute animal characters bombing Pearl Harbor. It's not funny, but it's gosh, and it was so popular, so successful that the Japanese government. It was a propaganda film, but it was so successful that the Japanese government then commissioned a longer work with the same basic idea of cute fluffy animals fighting in the war, and that grew into Momotaro's Divine Sea Warriors. Sea Eagles. I don't think it's. It might be on that Blu-ray. I don't know. I'm not sure. I have seen Sea Eagles. It's out there. It might just be on YouTube. I think if you just search for Momotaro Sea Eagles, you'll find it somewhere. Let me just double check. I mean, I have this right here. Because I've seen it. It can't be that crazy. Momotaro's Sea Eagles. Yeah. First result on YouTube looks like it is Momotaro's Sea Eagles, and in pretty decent quality. So you can see that and watch that. You actually have Momotaro's Divine Sea Warriors is English subbed on YouTube as well. That looks like an early fan sub. Yeah, 5 years ago. So this is before the Funimation dub came out. And the copyright on Momotaro's Divine Sea Warriors must be complicated. So I don't think YouTube can technically take that down. Because yes, Funimation, has a licensed version, but that doesn't mean that Funimation, it's who owns that, right? Who owns Momotaro's Divine Sea Warriors? So yeah, Sea Eagles is an interesting ride. It's not obviously quite as technically proficient as Sea Warriors, but it has some intensity in it. Some moments in Sea Eagles that are definitely memorable. Yeah, and it's right there on YouTube. So this is weird. Normally, on the Weekly Dig, this is our chance to check in and talk about what's been going on, but I've been doing that for the past 24 hours. Do I like odd anime titles? Yes. Oh yeah. Oh yes. Arguably, that's kind of what's defined me as an anime person is weird stuff. I was the otaku watching Serial Experiments Lain, not Dragon Ball. I'm a weirdo, very very happily. Let's see here. I tracked down Momotaro's Divine Sea Warriors before it was actually released, which is weird. I like the hardcore furry stuff. Hey now. No judging. How did you know? So of the anime coming out, let's do a quick little fun thing, if we can. If I do this, I could actually pull up something here. So here's the anime scheduled for next season. Let's scroll through here, see what's what's appealing and what's interesting. If anything is appealing to you, feel free to shout out. The zooming, nope, that doesn't, that's the wrong thing. Hold on. I went the wrong direction. There we go. So we've got Kaguya-sama Love is War, second season, which I'm looking forward to, even though I haven't seen much of any of Kaguya-sama Love is War, but I love that first episode. Third season of Yahare Ore no Seishun love comedy, my youth romantic love comedy. Sword Art Online, never got into it, so can't say. Fruits Basket second season. What? Fruits Basket second season. Let me actually pronounce that. If you like Fruits Basket, it's more of that. Kami no To Tower of God. Curious about this one. I like what I hear about it, like some of the concepts behind it. So I'll definitely give that a check out. Fifth season of Shokugeki no Soma, excuse me. Again, if you're into it, you're going to be into it. Then you've got BNA, which looks like an interesting sort of techie show. Some of it's already pre-streamed on Netflix. Curious about BNA. Gleipnir. Looks like a freaky one. Comedy drama ecchi. That's a collection there. So curious, but we'll see where that goes. Kakushigoto. Single father with a secret. He's a top-selling manga artist of a raunchy series. Isn't suitable reading for his young daughter. So he hides it from her. I saw some of the like a trailer for this one. It actually looks cute. Looks like a fun concept. Kakushigoto. And curious to see where that one goes. Otome Game no Hametsu flag. Wealthy heiress Katarina is hit on the head with a rock and recovers the memories of her past life. Turns out the world she lives in is the world of the game Fortune Lover, an Otome game she's obsessed with her past life, but she's now the villain character who tries to foil the protagonist's romances. The best ending the game has for Katarina is exile and the worst death. She'll have to find a way to avoid triggering the flags of doom and make her own happy future. That's funny. So the main character realizes she's now the villain of her favorite game and is now trying to avoid all of the flags that would cause her demise. I'm up for that. I'll definitely give that a try. Yesterday, Wo Utate, coming of age university graduate, wow, actually in university, hasn't been able to find employment. Mysterious woman with a pet crow. Huh. Interesting. That looks kind of... Come on. Okay, never mind. I like the overall tone of that. Honzuki no... so Sentence of a Bookworm Season 2, definitely watching that. Appare Ranman. An engineer and a samurai end up in America. They decide to compete in the Trans-American Wild Race to win a prize and return to Japan. Again, I've seen a trailer for this. I like the visual style. I like kind of the weirdness of it. Sort of a American road trip. Looks like a sort of a love letter to weird America. So we'll see how that goes. Fugo Keiji Balance Unlimited. No idea. Hachinan Te. 25-year-old goes to sleep, wakes up, finds himself in a room. Inside a 6-year-old body. Poor noble family. Boy, this is a long backstory. But he has magic. Okay. Whatever. Sort of quasi-isekai series. Definitely have to watch that to see if it goes anywhere. No Guns Life 2. I am so in. I need to catch up on No Guns Life, though. Listeners, the Great Adolescent Symphony, set in a world where nothing called music exists. We humans are scared of life forms that have no ears, or they're called no ears. And the only people who can stand up to them are prayers, those who pray, who can plug in and pilot equipment to combat mecha. This sounds like a rhythm game. With mecha, probably. Some video game that's inspired by. Arte, Firenze, early 16th century, birthplace of the Renaissance, sheltered girl's journey begins. She dreams of becoming an artist. Oh, cool. So sort of a historical anime about art. I'm up for that. I'm all interested in that one. I'll do that. Good idea. Hold on. Should have noticed that. 1 second. Actually, I'll post it in anime discussion. That makes more sense. So the anime discussion channel on the Discord now has a link to that page. Good idea. Tamayomi, baseball anime. Tsugumomo second season. Digimon Adventure. So this I'm very curious about. This is the second season. This is the remake of Digimon Adventure. All new story about Taichi Yagami and Digimon. So I'm very curious about this. I want to see what they do with Digimon. And seeing some of the clips, and clearly they are reworking the imagery, sort of modernizing the art style a little bit. It doesn't look, completely revamped, but definitely looks like it has a higher budget than season 1 of Digimon Adventure, which that had its moments where it's like, oh. But yeah. Let's see here. What else? Jashin-chan Dropkick, second season. Namiyo Kiteru. Hokkaido, heroine spills her woes to a radio station. Next day she hears a recording being played live over the air. She storms into a rage. Becomes this. Yeah. It's a story about being a radio host. Very weird. Like a bear shows up at one point. Looks like a really wild comedy with some dramatic elements. I'm very curious about Nami yo Kitekure. Shironeko Project Zero Chronicle. A world consisting of numerous isles. Wait a minute. Somebody stole our idea. How dare they? A young hero from the Astora Isle encounters the adventurer Kyle and follows him on an expedition on the isle. You meet a mysterious girl and a talking white cat, and together... I'll probably really like this one, but this just sounds very generic. Trying to find the 7 great runes. Yeah. I'll check it out, but who knows. Hokago Tebo Nishi joins the Embankment Club. She dislikes sea creatures, but she fishes. So a fishing anime. Fair. Cool. That sounds fun. Princess Connect Redive. Looks like sort of a fantasy slice of life show. I'm up for that. I'll do that. Kitsutsuki Tante Dokoro. Adaptation of a mystery novel set in 1909 during the Meiji era. Centers on fictional versions of a real-life poet and real-life linguists. Run a private detective agency. Cool. I'll give that a try. Gao to Kyoryu. Pardon. A gyaru named Kaede picks up a dinosaur and begins living with it in her room. So screwball comedy. I really like the art style. Idolish 7. So it's Idolish 7. Kingdom 3, third season of Kingdom. Boom. Alchemist, Bungo no Alchemist. In a world where you can meet famous Japanese historical writers. With a party composed of other writers, you delve into tainted books to purify them, unlock secrets, and gain new allies. So the problem with these kinds of things, is I love books. I love stories. But this is going to be so tied to specific Japanese authors and their stories, which I've never read, that I'm not going to get any of the references. So, again, I'll give it a try, but Shin Sakura Tyson. Ooh! Sakura Tyson. Yes. New Sakura Tyson. I'm all for that. I love what I've seen of Sakura Tyson, and I'd love to see a new version of that. Legendary franchise. Shacho Battle no Jikan Desu, anime adaptation of a smartphone strategy game. Isekai, undimensional gates appear in the skies, opening portals to countless dungeons. The player is a company president who employs adventurers to take on dungeons filled with monster. The player recruits or trains fighters and other classes. So I've seen a thing on this that actually looks fun because you basically play the manager, where you're recruiting the adventurers to go down into the dungeons and you're sort of a paper pusher trying to handle all that stuff as opposed to being like an adventure show. So that looks fun. That looks like a cool idea. Major second season, baseball. Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens, Yu-Gi-Oh! Argonavis from Bang Dream. Mucal Dreamy, I repeat. A middle school girl named Yume sees something fall from the sky and meets a pale violet-colored kitten named Mew, who has the power of Dream Synchro, the power to enter dreams. It's Magical Girl. That's just what it is. Shadowverse, that's shonen. That's shonen all over it. Participates in tournaments. What did I tell you? Cardfight Vanguard is Cardfight Vanguard Season 38. Gal Gaku Hijiri Girls Square Gakuen, the Holy Girls Square Academy. An academy for training pro star performers, so it's an idol show. Watanuki-san Chi-to, second season. So Watanuki-san Chi-to. Kyorato Pri-chan Season 3. Tomika Kizuna Gatai Earth Granner. Battles between mysterious alien enemy and secret defense unit. So it looks like young boys kind of tokusatsu mecha kind of a thing. Could be fun, but whatever. Bakugan, Battle Planet, Bakugan, and then this. Yeah. Bang Dream, and the various shorts. Which should be fun, but these are just so hit and miss. Always. Gotta give them a try and see if they work for you. You never know. You never know. Yeah, sadly, there's no interspecies reviewers this season or next season. I wonder what will be the fate of interspecies reviewers, if that will become if folks will remember it 5 years from now, beyond the controversy. I don't know. I just don't know. Who ever knows these things? Yeah, this is weird. So we are near the end of Saturday of OnCon, my little online anime convention, which has been a blast all weekend so far. I want to thank all the folks who've been here. And I'm not signing off. I'm just saying. This has been really cool so far, just kind of taking stock of everything so far. It's been really interesting. Yeah, I think you're right. Interspecies reviewers will become a cult classic, I think. Folks will remember it, but it won't be watched a lot, I don't think. So yeah, it's kind of weird. I'm used to doing this at the end of a week where we haven't seen each other for a while, but we've been talking all weekend. So I'm trying to think of what else to say tonight, before we start our little rave over in the SciTube. Not quite sure how we're gonna what else to talk about. We've done some history. We've done that. I've been doing giveaways all day. Oh, I may have forgotten to do a giveaway. Did I do that? I forgot to do... Oh, yeah, I was supposed to do giveaways twice today. Oopsie. Let's do that. Let's do a giveaway. Why not? I'd like you all to have some stuff. So we'll do it as we have before. I have the D10 of anime genres. I will roll that. What are we giving away, though? I'm going to give away... Yeah. a manga this time. I'm going to give away Volume 1 of Dr. Slump. This was Akira Toriyama's first big hit before he made a little thing called Dragon Ball, which, you know, is a thing, and kind of overshadowed Dr. Slump. But for a while, in like the early 80s, Dr. Slump was his big deal, and it was super popular and super successful. It is a comedy. It is a really goofy comedy. It is definitely Akira Toriyama, right? It is definitely that, but it is just a screwball comedy all the way through, and it's really fun. I'm just skimming here to make sure. I recall there being some. There's a fair amount of inappropriate humor in this, because the Doctor is kind of a perv. He does not perv on Arale-chan there at all. She's a super powerful android. But there are one or two jokes in there that's kind of like, okay. So just be aware of that. In other words, this looks very much like it's appropriate for kids. But you might want to read it first. But we will go ahead and give that away. Let me go ahead and roll a die. See what we get. We got a genre. We got a genre. Let us pull it up. So go ahead and in the chat, throw some guesses as to what is our genre. We've talked about it today. We've talked about it within the past hour, this particular genre. And we will see if whoever guesses it first. That was fast. Surprisingly. Very good, Kaminoko. Isekai is indeed the rolled genre. So you will be receiving a copy of Dr. Slump. But wait! And so go ahead and DM me your mailing address. And I will get that out to you. Congratulations. Dr. Slump is a fun read. What else should I get out? It's a fun night. You know what I'm going to do? We've been doing 80s anime in the SciTube. So I'm going to give away AD Police. That's right. AD Police. This is an OVA in the Bubblegum Crisis universe, focusing on the AD Police, a special police unit that deals with boomers, androids, basically replicants from Blade Runner. You can get a copy of AD Police and see how crazy it could get in anime in the 80s. Not crazy, but you know. And we're going to give that away. And we're going to do it the exact same way. So let me re-roll the die. We have a new... we'll do something different. There we go. Hard to read. But we have a new genre. I didn't want to repeat. We have a new genre. So folks, you have a chance to win AD Police. Go ahead and guess the genre in the chat room there. And we'll see who gets it. One more giveaway for the night. And we'll see where it goes there. Yeah, all film cyberpunk comes from Blade Runner. But, you know, Blade Runner came from Neuromancer, I would say. Haven't seen the guess yet. Haven't seen it come up. Oh, man, that was faster than I expected, though. Lord Admira, congratulations. Shoujo is indeed the genre. Again, that was pretty darn quick. So congratulations. Lord Admira 3, please go ahead and DM me, either on YouTube or Discord, with your mailing address, and I will ship out a copy to you of AD Police. Let me just note that down. He say you Blade Runner. Just rewatched that recently. Lord Admira 3. And I will keep this off to one side. Congratulations. Always good to see things going to good homes. I assume it's good homes. I assume you all will take good care of this stuff, right? Perhaps you are a precog. Who knows? I couldn't say one way or the other. Cool. I am trying to disseminate the anime and manga. So there we go. Yep, watch the final cut, William. Hadn't seen Blade Runner in years and years and years, and so I was like, let me just sit down and watch Blade Runner. That was a good experience. Neuromancer is, that is one of the first cyberpunk works. It absolutely helped to establish the genre. Arguably the first cyberpunk, but again, how do you define that? And then, the other big one that came out a few years after that, which I remember a lot more clearly, honestly. I would never broadcast things without the IP owner's permission. You crazy? That's ridiculous. I don't really watch much media. Just not my thing. You know, I'm weird that way. I don't know. And there's certainly some anime and manga in this list where I'm like, I read that once. That's fine. I don't need to read it again. I got it. I'm cool with that. But yeah. Cool. Then I think let's go ahead and switch over. Let's see here. 1 second. Yeah, I agree. Akira is definitely a forerunner as well. But Akira is not really the Akira manga is not really very cyberpunk. It's more post-apocalyptic. The anime ended up having cyberpunk aesthetics in it. He kind of wove cyberpunk into that. Those first few chapters of Akira, again, formative, certainly cyberpunk-esque, but it was all starting to work together. But definitely a forerunner. You're absolutely right. All right, so I think we're gonna go ahead and transition over to the SciTube for our rave for the night. We're gonna show some hard thumping AMVs and play around with that and dance like you've never danced before over in SciTube, and that will finish us out, I think, for the night. Let me go ahead and paste in the SciTube URL in case anyone wants to head over there and join us. And so that should be transitioning over to the rave here momentarily. Well, in the next 10 minutes, 10 minutes or so. And we will do that. And we'll watch some AMVs. And you can dance or not. Up to you. The nice thing about an online rave is you can just sit there and listen, or you can dance. I'll be dancing. I'll be dancing for some of that. Why not? That will be the plan there. Cool. All right, that'll do it. Thank you all so much. That is the end of the Weekly Dig and OnCon Saturday. The Saturday, day 2 of OnCon, is now officially ending its broadcast day, except now we're going to go and watch some AMVs. Thank you all so much. Have a great one, and see you next time. Until next time, watch more anime.